by Channel 4 News as part of a smear campaign, but the broadcaster has denied those claims.
This guy is a setup. He was acting from the minute he walked into that office. He came up with a stream of invective not seen since Alf Garnett was on the television in the early 1970s. And some of it was just, turning moths into Wetherspoons. It wasn't even serious. It was nonsense. So I really feel that Channel 4 or the production company need to be called before an inquiry. Let's find out the truth about what happened.
The Prime Minister insists an election victory for the Conservatives is still possible, despite polls predicting a heavy defeat. Rishi Sunak warned today that Labour's tax plans would bankrupt people in every generation, and also criticised their plan to make private schools pay VAT, saying that taxing education is wrong. Labour says, though, its first steps in power would be restoring economic stability and cutting NHS waiting lists. The party continues to lead the Tories in the polls by around 20 points ahead of next week's election. And in France, voters have given the far-right National Rally a strong lead in the first round of parliamentary elections today. Exit polls tonight showing Marine Le Pen has won, with President Macron's centrist group trailing in third place with around 23%. That's after his decision to call a snap vote earlier this month. Turnout was also unusually high compared to with previous elections, the largest turnout in 40 years. But experts say predictions after the first round can be highly inaccurate, with a week of political bargaining now lying ahead before the final results. And in the US, the White House is pushing back tonight on reports that President Biden had planned to discuss the future of his campaign with his family at Camp David today. It's after a report by NBC News that quoted several unnamed sources, alleging that some senior party members are pushing for Joe Biden to stand aside following his performance in a televised debate against Donald Trump. But officials say that trip was planned before the debate, and they've denied there was any serious discussion about the president standing down. Police in Tenerife have called off their search for the missing teenager Jay Slater today. The British tourist from Lancashire was last seen in a mountainous area of the island. According to reports, that search operation has now finished, although police say the case does remain open. It comes just 2 days after a big push by search teams and expert volunteers to help find the 19-year-old. And as I'm sure you've heard by now, England are through to the quarter-finals of Euro 2024, but only after an incredibly late comeback against Slovakia to win 2-1. And as soon as the final whistle went, the fan zone in Wembley erupted with cheers. Well, Jude Bellingham equalised in the 95th minute. Then captain Harry Kane headed home the decisive goal early in extra time, just 50 seconds into extra time. England will now play Switzerland in the quarter-finals in Dusseldorf on Saturday. And those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sam Francis. Up next, it's Headliners.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sam. Hello and welcome to Headliners, your look at the next day's newspapers with 3 comedians. And for anybody who doesn't think GB News provides balance, we've got 3 different types of far-right extremist on the show tonight. I'm Leo Kirsten. Tonight I'm joined by Paul Cox, the People's Gammon, and Nick Dixon, the People's Gaddafi. How are you?
Loved by his people.
Yeah, exactly.
Died in a hole.
How dare you? That's later.
That's Series 6.
OK, let's have a look at tomorrow's front pages. The Times leads with French right-wing humiliates Macron. The Daily Mail has don't lock in Labour for a generation. The Telegraph has Le Pen, I have wiped out Macron. The Guardian has Labour can stem populist threat by improving lives, says Starmer. Kemi, my heart breaks when Tories turn to reform. And finally, the Daily Star has Yay Jude, and those were your front pages. And let's have a closer look at those front pages, starting with the Daily Star, Paul.
Yeah, it's the England game, and yay, Jude in the Daily Star. Hell of a goal by Bellingham. And now I was trying to watch the game as I was coming on to set to do Free Speech Nation, and I saw the goal, and it was Roy the Rovers stuff, Nick.
So this is a football story.
It's a football story, Leo. We'll leave this to Nick and I because we know the football stuff.
And don't know about football or don't care.
Well, it's not a real sport like tossing the caber.
True, that is true.
No, what you do in your own time, mate, is up to you.
There is a political angle, though, because people say Southgate's woke.
Yeah.
For 95 minutes of this match, I thought, right, Southgate has actually been hired to quash nationalism and stop the rise of Reform UK. That's the only explanation of how you take such a gifted team and make them play so badly and so boringly.
Yeah.
But then it got to 95 minutes. 95 minutes. Oh. Bellingham scores an overhead kick. It was one of the great goals. It was like an actual great moment. For those old enough, it was like Platt versus Belgium 1990. It wasn't an amazing moment, Paul.
Beautiful moment, and yeah, I think I don't want to take away from that moment because then we went on and Kane scored in extra time to make it 2-1, and we basically scraped past a team that were better than us for the majority of the game in Slovakia, and we probably ought not to forget that because my worry with Southgate is this will now validate his planning.
Yes, that is the worry. That is the worry because we still have problems going. We've got no left back still. Luke Shaw's injured. We've got no left back.
We're getting into real boring football.
But when
talk
Palmer
now.
came in, it made a massive difference. Now, this is going to be the show from now on. We're doing a football show. Didn't we tell you that football shows replacing headliners?
Sports people always talk this absolute nonsense, like, oh, the boy's got a lot of pace. What does any of it mean? None of it means anything. Do you think Reform or some of the more patriotic parties that don't want to destroy Britain might get a boost from the sea of waving flags?
I saw Farage saying, "Come on, England." I think they will. And that generally crossed my mind. Southgate might be containment to try and keep it. Don't let me get too happy because we got to a final last time. They're like, make sure they don't win it. We'll Brexit again.
That was a message from Team World. Moving on, what's on the front cover of the Telegraph, Nick?
So the Telegraph have Le Pen. I have wiped out Macron. Very bold word. She says she's practically wiped out Macron. She got 34.5% of the vote versus the New Popular Front, who are lefties, got 28.5%. And Macron's Together coalition, 22.5%. So you just got absolutely destroyed.
So he came third.
It seems that way. And from the Telegraph article, I know it's shocking stuff. I hope that's right, because I've just...
I
hate to give out misinformation on the telly and be Lewis Schaefer, but the point is, she's destroyed Macron. He took this snap election. It's backfired, unless you believe the theory that he wants to just go and do a job for the UN or NATO or something, or he wants to just get out of...
Well, that seems to be the career progression for all politicians. I think Rishi's eyeing his next job at Facebook or whatever it is. But
and she says she wants an absolute majority in the second round because it's this weird French system I don't understand.
Well, yeah, so this is the first round. Yeah. So, I mean, this could... I mean, the smaller parties, which actually now includes Macron's party, they could tell their voters to support the New Popular Front, to support the hard left. I mean, the New Popular Front, I'm surprised people aren't more alarmed. I know there's a lot of alarm on the left that Le Pen's party has done so well, but they're actually, more of a sort of Meloni-style sensible right-wing party now. Whereas the New Popular Front, it seems to be raving maniacs who are communists and anti-Semites and all kinds of, and they did really surprisingly well. So they could still, if other parties get behind the New Popular Front, we could see a very different France to the one that Le Pen wants.
You've misread the room for about 25 years, Leo. Extremism only occurs on the right of politics. It does not occur on the left of politics. There is no form of extremism on the left. You cannot go left far enough. I don't know where is the nth degree of the left, by the way?
Jordan Peterson said that. He's like, where does the left go too far? No one's answered that. And it's a good point Leo makes, because the story is always like, oh, the populist right is rising in Europe. But actually, the real story is of polarisation. The centre is being destroyed, and there's the two poles.
Well, yeah, and some people have criticised Macron for sort of, just colonising that centre ground. So there's no centrist alternative to Macron. So people are looking either to the right or to the left. There's another story on there that's quite interesting, saying Putin is hoping for a Labour victory. I mean, that's different from, we've been told that, Putin is probably hoping for a reform victory.
First the Times come out supporting Labour, and then Putin comes out this afternoon and says, I too will be supporting Labour. And of course, the message behind this, I think, is that there's a certain weakness about Sir Keir Starmer and his Labour Party that Putin might just take advantage of, Nick.
Do you think it's just weakness?
It's also specifically about defence spending, because when Pat McFadden did was it Laura Koonsberg, he couldn't come out with any commitment about defence spending. So Sunak is saying they're going to cut defence spending and embolden our enemies, and Labour haven't got a sort of robust rebuttal to that yet.
Right, interesting. So I'm surprised Putin's not supporting the Green Party. Moving on to the iNews poll, what have they got?
UK heading for stagnation after election. Labour and Tories told. So dozens of economists, warn that Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer are failing to offer a serious plan to grow the UK economy. And I don't think anyone could disagree with this. I mean, we are in many ways heading into stagnation, but I have not seen from the Tories or Labour a single policy that would help me or anyone else understand how they're going to turn the corner, how they're going to rebuild. In fact, within Reform's contract, the only thing that I've seen that's economically sound politically is this, no tax below 20 grand business.
Yeah.
Because it gets people back into work. Outside of that, I have not seen anything.
Well, maybe 14 years of the Tory party have shown Labour that they don't need to have any sound economic ideas. They can just be like the Tory party.
Well, this is what we're seeing, though, aren't we? The Uni Party all in action here. And I do worry, genuinely worry, how this is going. Because, of course, we're going to have a Labour Party in power come the end of next week. That is almost inevitable now. But what does that mean? Because once the celebrations have died down and we're all mandatory trans people, what are we going to do?
But Nick, I mean, the issue is that, no matter who gets in, if Labour get in, if the Tories get in, even if Reform get in, there's going to be economic stagnation, but just because of the way our economy is structured. We've got an ageing population. I mean, the pension fund is going to be, the state pension fund is going to be unserviceable in a few years.
Yeah, we've got the ageing population, we've got debt, we've got the legacy of lockdowns, we have inflation problems. You can't do what Liz Truss did. That's proven you'll get destroyed if you do that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that I was re-listening to the Dwarkesh podcast with Dominic Cummings. That's the kind of thing I do on my weekends, Paul. And he's like a Silicon Valley sort of guy, this guy. And he was saying Britain has just had terrible economic growth and terrible productivity since about 2008. Yeah. You don't hear about it that much. As you say, in the election campaign, we're not hearing about that. But on the global perspective, apparently, we're not doing too well with the old productivity. So,
and throughout the developed world, productivity has plummeted ever since welfare started, being pumped. It's almost as if giving people money to sit around doing nothing harms productivity. Anyway, finishing off this section on The Guardian, Nick.
Yeah, this is quite interesting. Labour can stem populist threat by improving lives, says Starmer. It's a good idea, isn't it? Improving lives. But I see what he means. He's talking about... Well, first he talks about a toxic, divisive culture he wants to end, which I always think is a bit of nonsense. It's like trying to claim that the other side is causing a culture war, but of course that's not... We all know Labour are going to do loads of stealth, incredibly radical things on the side, so I just don't believe that. But the other part is he says it's no good saying, well, I don't like the rise of populism and nationalism. You have to understand why that's happening. And that's key, and we've seen it in Europe as well. If you can't grasp and absorb the populist... The genuine part of the populist message, immigration is a serious problem and things like that, you will be destroyed. I think Starmer and Blair behind him are at least smart enough to recognise that. So, you occasionally see them come out with some quite tough stuff on immigration. He was talking about sending back people to Bangladesh the other day. But if they don't do these kind of things, they will become irrelevant.
And it's probably just talk. It's like when Rishi Sunak says, well, I'm going to stop the boats. What it really means is I'm going to let 50,000 more of them in and then get voted out.
I'm really starting to see the cynicism of the conflation of populism and nationalism, right? Populism is not bad. Imagine Top of the Pops without populism, right? Imagine what that would look like.
The John Peel show.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine what that would look like. Populism is giving the people what they want. So essentially, you're saying don't give the people what they want. Nationalism has now been painted as this great far right, joyful thing that we all wander around beating our chests, saying only white English people should live here. That's a load of nonsense as well.
I did see you in the dressing room.
That was one off. But if you conflate those two things, then the left can really use that against you.
Yeah.
Those two things shouldn't be conflated. They are cynically in order to produce this sort of dynamic we see within politics now. And the idea that nationalism is bad, it invokes sort of Nazi Germany, doesn't it? But
well, yeah, nationalism is bad until we go to war with Russia.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden people will be like, oh, don't you want to die for your country? Don't you want to, don't you think your country's worth fighting for? And it's like, well, actually, we've had several decades of being told that we're not allowed to feel any connection to our country. And also, I mean, Starmer, for all that Labour criticise populism, criticise nationalism, Starmer isn't afraid of flying the British flag, but it seems to be at odds with what Labour actually stand for and what Labour actually believe. It's quite interesting to see, and I'd say that's the more cynical populism.
Plastic patriot, he's been called.
and who could deny that he's not? I mean, who knows what he believes?
Yeah, well, I believe he's quite patriotic. It's the rest of the story, rest of the party I worry about. Anyway, that's the front pages done. Join us in part 2 as we delve deeper into the papers with Glastonbury celebrating illegal immigration. And just when you thought things couldn't get worse for Britain, there's a terror warning. Oh, goody. See you in a couple of minutes.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
So, question is, what can we do to get young people to eat healthy food? Here's dietitian and nutrition consultant Helen Bond. Helen, what do you think?
Eating habits formed at this age tend to persist into later life. We know we're eating too much fat, sugar, salt, and not enough of the good things like fibre, fruits and vegetables, all of those things. So yes, we need to help this age group so they have the skill set and they have the nutrition knowledge to take that forward.
Do you agree that it is impossible to eat healthily on a budget and quickly as well, or do you have any sort of fail-safe, affordable and very quick to prep meals that you'd recommend youngsters try?
It doesn't have to be expensive either, but you have to have those kind of cost-cutting hacks and those time-saving things in the kitchen. Make use, I always say, of things like peas, beans and lentils, which are a type of pulse, very inexpensive compared to meat, and yet they double up as one of your 5 a day, and also a great source of plant-based protein. If you overget a milk as something, you have too much milk, maybe make some lattes.
I just wanted to throw a shoe at the TV, really, because was there nothing else on or nothing else available? The point being, there is an audience, there is obviously an appeal, there's obviously people are watching this stuff. So what are they doing? Are they watching and not cooking?
I think that's it. They're watching and maybe enjoying all the cookery programmes like I do. And I'm a typical person in the kitchen. I must have about 100 cookbooks. But sometimes when you are time poor, you've got to feed a family or you've got to feed yourself and everything, you don't really know where to start. And I think that's why apps and having things online for this younger audience makes it much more accessible. Start with one recipe and build it up from there. Like I said,
The People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, unlike you.
That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
You'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice.
Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Leo Kerr, and my panel made up of Paul Cox and Nick Dixon, who's still recovering from his trip to the Westminster studio. Kicking off this section with the
No one will
Times.
get that at home.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't write that in myself. Kicking off this section with the Times, and Keir Starmer wants to repeat Tony Blair's trick of being backed by the Sun, although it might lose him some votes in Liverpool, Paul.
Yes, that's true. Labour wants endorsement from the Sun after getting backing off Murdoch's Sunday Times. Much to the surprise of some people, I think. Murdoch's flagship Sunday broadsheet has endorsed Sir Keir Starmer, but insiders say it was more about the anti-Tory mood than any support for Labour. And, you know, Labour have sort of enormous lead in the polls. They've had an endorsement from Elton John, which is apparently the kingmaker. I mean, they're just getting greedy now. They got... I don't know why. I mean, obviously, back in the day, to get backing from the Sun really did mean something. And perhaps it would do now, but I think the readership's quite down. Also, do they need it?
Yeah.
Do they really need it? I wonder with the Sun whether they're holding back slightly. My theory on that is that the Sun readers, a lot of them are likely to vote Reform.
Yeah.
And if the Sun go for Labour, they might see a drop in readership.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, this is really one of the first elections that mainstream media isn't going to have as much of an impact as social media. I mean, all the other platforms have podcasts and YouTube channels that are have far more viewers than actual mainstream media or mainstream newspapers.
That is a good point. I mean, call me naive and idealistic, but I found the whole thing a bit weird that a set of paper or set of newspapers backs the government full stop. Shouldn't they be holding them to account? Is that too old-fashioned to think the media should sort of
No, it's
hold
not.
it? I mean, it's a bit weird, isn't it?
Well, maybe they start doing that once they're elected.
I mean, maybe, but it seems a bit weird to me. And also this idea that it's the right time for Labour to be entrusted with restoring competence to government. This is a dangerous assumption. No one actually knows that Labour are going to be competent.
Yeah.
They just know the Tories are incompetent. But why do we think Rachel Reeves is going to be great at managing the economy? She doesn't even know what a woman is. She may have learned in the last few years.
Well, it should help the gender pay gap, but the way it was phrased in The Economist, they're backing Labour, but it was more like it sounded like they wanted to back Labour to give the Tories a few years to get their house in order so they could come back in and run the country properly. So, you know, we sort of need a caretaker.
That's interesting.
Nick, I'm confused because you said we're not sure that Labour are going to be competent. Have you not seen the celebrity endorsements?
You're right, Elton John.
There were people that said they've met Keir Starmer, and he's a nice man.
Nice bloke.
I really don't know what more you need.
You're right. It's all a bit sort of weird, isn't it? Have you watched Succession? I've been rewatching it for the 8 millionth time. And Brian Cox in that, who's meant to be a kind of Murdoch character, refers to the President of the United States as the raisin, meaning the California raisin. That's total contempt for him. It's a bit weird that sort of our media people have total contempt for our politicians, sort of treat them like puppets. Having said that, if Murdoch ever buys GBNews, I just want to say he's a great guy. Love the whole family. I was just using an example. That was satire.
Okay. Well, we've got the Daily Mail now, and the Glastonbury Festival crowd celebrated illegal immigration, even though Glastonbury has a very secure border fence, and anyone who enters illegally is removed by security, Nick.
Yes, and some people apparently got past it, and it was chaos recently, so who'd have thought? Yeah, so Oliver Dowden is really saddened by Banksy's Glastonbury inflatable migrant boat, saying traffickers putting migrants' families' lives at risk is not the sort of thing to joke around with. And Oliver Dowden is Deputy Prime Minister, in case anyone's forgotten. It's quite easy to do.
Yeah.
But, yes, if anyone saw this, it was this migrant dinghy. It was during an Idols gig. Idols said they had nothing to do with it. They didn't even know about it. Though they do have some fairly cringe lyrics. They've got lyrics about how Mo Farah is great and centrist dad kind of rubbish like that.
We've got a picture here of the actual Glastonbury
border.
The Glastonbury border. I mean, look at
that big, beautiful wall.
I mean, yeah, Trump wishes he could have a border like that. That is the most secure. You've got watchtowers like it's a concentration camp.
Yeah.
You've got two different walls for people to get over. Yeah, snipers powered by hemp. It's
completely absurd. And on this Banksy thing, it was it's an obvious point. Yeah, it's meant to be like, oh, look at the migrants on the dinghy. But yes, okay, it's an expression of concern for the actual migrants, but they are put there by ruthless criminals who don't care about their well-being. So the idea of a migrant dinghy, it is a strange image, and it is very Glastonbury. It's very virtue signalling and cosy, but what does it really mean?
Although having this inflatable migrant raft with mannequins on it, they were the only brown faces in the crowd on the video that I saw.
Did they make the mannequins brown?
Yeah, they
brilliant.
had to.
So they're not coming from
did
Norway.
brown
face on the mannequins.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's accurate. They're not coming from Sweden.
Well, I can't see colour, Leo, so I'm not sure what you're talking about. But I mean, it was ignorant, and a lot of this is ignorant, though, isn't it? I mean, if you're going to pretend to know about the nuanced politics of the immigration issue, one of the best places to do it is at Glastonbury Festival, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, they've all got an opinion on these things in much the same way we have, but they're not. Their opinions are only informed by what they read in the Guardian and nothing else.
And it's rank hypocrisy as well, because as we've just seen, they've got an extremely secure border around their festival. If they really believed in open borders, why do they just do away with the border altogether? Because as Nick mentioned, people were vaulting over the border fence and being apprehended by security. And the people at Glastonbury were complaining that there wasn't enough food and water to go around, and there were crushes in the crowds. There was too many people. It's like, well, that sounds a bit familiar. Sounds like you're racist. Sounds like the entire crowd at Glastonbury is racist.
It's forced stages to shut down due to overcrowding as fans panic in the crush. I know, imagine. And by the way, it's so cringe now, Glastonbury. They've got Joe Wicks doing exercise. I mean, it's good to do exercise, but Joe Wicks, it's not exactly edgy, is it? And the haters will laugh at me for saying this, but the real rock and roll event is the Reform rally. That was far more edgy.
So many bands on there.
So many people there. Well, Farage was like a band. He's the real rock star. And the people at Glastonbury just cringe losers.
And there's more diversity at the Reform rally as well, interestingly. Moving on, the Daily Mail we're covering it again with some warnings that the war in Israel could lead to British followers of the religion of peace being extra super mega peaceful, Paul.
Yes, UK could be hit by a wave of homegrown jihadis if British Muslims are called anti-Semitic after Hamas terror attack on Israel, scholars warn. So Dr. Mohammed bin Abdul Karim Alissa, security.
He's got the right name for it.
Yeah, he has indeed. Secretary General of the Muslim World League, which I don't think England play in.
Not for another couple of decades.
Said unwarranted suspicion of Islam could drive moderate followers of the religion to form their hardline views that lead to terrorism. And I'm not going to be obtuse and pretend I don't understand his sentiment. I understand exactly what he's saying. But the idea that we stop calling out discrimination to prevent discrimination is not going to work. Just so you know, mate, it's not going to work.
Why aren't, I don't know, neo-Nazis treated like this? Why aren't people like, oh, no, don't be mean to the neo-Nazis because you might make other people upset? I mean, who does the PR? Neo-Nazis must be looking at Islamists and being like, who does their PR? I wish we could get, state-funded indoctrination camps.
Sorry, Nick, because I feel like I'm treading on your toes here, but he is definitely revealing something here, whether he means to or not, and that is that there is an element within the religion, and particularly the younger elements of the religion, that could easily be turned, and that's what he's worried about. And for me, that's the issue. Not pointing out that, not saying, oh, you're anti-Semitic, because a lot of the stuff we've seen is anti-Semitic. So calling them anti-Semitic is actually a good thing.
Well, yeah, Nick, we've got, I think it's as many as 40,000 Islamic extremists on MI5 watch lists, which is kind of terrifying. We've sort of invited this ideology into our country, and now we're having to keep tabs on it.
It is something like 90-95% of the people on those lists, isn't it? Despite what elements of the media say. Yeah, I mean, it does sound a little bit like the blaming the woman for wearing the short skirt argument, isn't it? It's like, stop talking about the people being anti-Semitic. I mean, it is a strange argument. I mean, we've heard the views ever since October 7th. It's been pretty clear that a lot of people do have these views. Although a lot of the people, to be fair, are just lefty posh students who aren't Muslims as well. Shout out to them as well.
Well, we've got the Daily Mail again, and following his car crash debate with Donald Trump, it looks like Joe Biden might be stepping down. I hope he doesn't fall down those steps.
Well, no, we shall see. You can't step down a stair lift, can you? But Biden will discuss major decision with his family as they return to Camp David. That's not a fella, by the way. As his campaign issues bizarre defence of embattled president. So my guess is that Biden isn't going to be part of this discussion. My strong guess is that he hasn't been part of the discussion for quite some time. I mean, who is, by the way? Is it Jill Biden? Is it the Obamas? Is it the Magic 8 Ball? Do you remember that in the movies? Just how do we run the country?
I'd vote for that right now.
But I really don't see him being part of that discussion. I'll be genuinely surprised if they change now. Yeah. Because I think they're blinded by it.
Well, yeah, Nick, I mean, do you think they've left it too late to change their candidate?
They've left it very late, and it's a very interesting moment because there's a rare split between the kind of left-wing media and the Democratic establishment. We had the New York Times with a big headline basically saying, get rid of this guy, I'm paraphrasing, the Guardian in this country, and that's quite strange. We had the media really pushing to get rid of him, but the people close to him, you know, Obama and others, and obviously his wife, who apparently is running the country, they're very reluctant to get rid of him. And this guy, Rob Flaherty, who's his campaign manager, they're all, like, sticking with him. And for the reasons you say, we saw what happened to the Tories when you try and change leader too much. It is chaos. He's saying it'll be internal fighting, chaos, and Trump can do what he wants. What's also really interesting to me is Trump's response. He put out a statement on Truth Social. It was incredibly moderate and soft, and he even said, oh, Biden did a lot better on Friday. So why? Two reasons. One...
Trump wants to run against Biden.
Well, that's the obvious reason. That's the obvious one. I mean, you could say, one, and I think he was in the debate doing this, trying to not look too cruel because it plays badly. But yes, two, never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. He wants to go against Biden.
And he doesn't want to run against some young blood. He doesn't want Gavin Newsom or someone coming in who could actually give a boost to the Democrats' campaign. So, yeah, we're at the halfway point, but still to come, we've got Nazi students, Farage hailed as a new Caesar, and a Love Island controversy. See you in a couple of minutes.
Good evening and welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Well, a changeable week ahead with some rain and showers, plenty of dry weather around too though. For today though, we've got a frontal system clearing its way southeastwards, allowing a ridge of high pressure to build, bringing a fairly settled evening. Notice the winds coming from a northwesterly direction though, meaning things are going to be feeling a little bit cooler. A change on the way into this evening, though, as we see outbreaks of rain move their way into western and northwestern parts of the UK. But on the whole, overnight, plenty of dry weather around, a mix of cloud and clear spells. And under those clear spells, it will feel a little bit cooler, but most towns and cities remaining in the double digits. An unsettled picture as we head into Sunday, particularly across northern areas, as we'll continue to see those outbreaks of rain edge their way into eastern parts of Scotland. So fairly damp in the west, a few drier spells before that rain moves in the east. Quite a damp start too across Northern Ireland, northwestern parts of England, but once again in the far east, around Yorkshire, for example, fairly dry with some bright sunshine to start. And similar across the south and southeast, a mix of cloud, but also some bright sunny spells to start the day on Monday. Generally, though, it is going to be quite an unsettled picture. Outbreaks of rain spreading their way eastwards across the country, a little bit heavy at times across hills in Scotland. Generally, though, later on across Wales and the south and southeast, a bit of cloud around, but some sunshine breaking through, particularly across southern parts of Wales and Devon and Cornwall. A bit cloudier in the southeast, but that's where we'll see the best of the temperatures, highs of around 21 Celsius. For Tuesday, another north-south split with some showers and some longer spells of rain feeding into the northwest and later on into northern parts of England and northern Wales. And across the south and southeast, that's where we'll have the driest of the weather again and the best of the temperatures. Turning windier from midweek, but plenty of dry weather around too. Bye for now.
This election night, we're putting on a party.
And you are invited.
We'll be here with you.
Following all the twists and turns.
As well as all the live reaction from our election night watch party.
With our GB News lineup.
And as morning breaks, we'll be here with breakfast from 6 a.m.
As it becomes clear who the winners and the losers really are.
Vote 2024.
Thursday, the 4th of July.
Only on GB News.
Britain's election channel. Congratulations to the GB News winners at this year's TRIC Awards.
And the winner of Interview of the Year is... Alistair Stewart reveals his heartbreaking diagnosis to Camilla Tominey.
And the winner is GB News Breakfast. And the winner is Nigel Farage.
And thank you to you, our GB News viewers and listeners, for making us the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. We've got the Telegraph now, and the historian Mary Beard says Nigel Farage will be the greatest British leader of all time and restore the empire. At least I think that's what she meant.
That's pretty much it, Leo, yeah. Mary Beard, Nigel Farage is today's Julius Caesar. So there you go. And Caesar must have done something right. We're still talking about him, although that also applies to Hitler. The point is, Farage is the new Caesar. And actually, if you look at what she said, it is quite reasonable. She says, I dislike drawing crude lines between the past and today, but a lot of modern modern-day populism is taken from the playbook of Caesar. Caesar begins by saying, we're going to make Rome great again, totally great, stuff like that. And she's saying that, look, Farage it's a similar thing, like, I'm going back because you need me and you want me to do it. So she's saying that's very similar. And she also says that we have to look at ourselves, much like Starmer was saying in that other article, though, if you actually believe him. But I believe Mary Beard more when she said we've got to look at ourselves and say, is this something that we're not acknowledging that allows this populist uprising, and and say there's an unmet need here. And people might be surprised because she's a lefty, she was a Corbyn fan, but there is some sense among the Corbynista types that although he did get his chance as leader, that he doesn't really get allowed into the establishment either, especially now that he's been brutally kicked out of the party. And you see that on the Galloway side, don't you? You saw Galloway saying, I'll debate you, Nigel, because we've been kept out of the debate. So, yeah, I thought it was a very reasonable point that she was making.
Yeah, but I'm sort of reassured that the establishment keeps Jeremy Corbyn out of things.
Yeah, I mean, I read the whole thing, which is, I don't normally do that. I just normally read the top lines, make up an opinion and say it live on air. But
works for Lewis.
Yeah, it does, yeah. He's the one who taught me, actually. But I read the whole thing because I was waiting for the catch, because I don't suppose Mary Beard meant it to be quite as positive as it come across. That was my hunch with this. Unless I'm seeing someone like Julius Caesar or any form of populism as not a bad thing, and she is. But the fact that she had
Caesar, although Caesar's described as a populist by her, I mean, when he talked about making Rome great again and draining the swamp and holding back the elites had done a huge amount of damage to Rome, both economically and the society of Rome at that point. So Caesar was right. He wasn't saying it to be. I mean, in my mind, a populist is somebody who kind of lies or presents a twisted version of the truth. But Caesar was right, and a lot of the issues that Rome was facing and the issues that brought Rome down are very similar to the issues that are currently bringing down Western liberal civilization.
Yeah. Unless they've misquoted her, she is saying it's very easy to be a comfortable member of the liberal elite and say it's all very vulgar. But look at the people who follow Trump. Who else has responded to them? So she's saying we can't be complacent. And that is, like you say, that will fall like Rome, and it looks like it's...
Yeah, the introspective view of it and saying, look, what is it I don't like it, but what is it we're missing?
Yeah.
Is really important, because there's not enough people doing that.
Yeah.
Because usually the problem is them.
Yeah.
And that is the issue. And someone like Mary Beard, to be able to say that, for me, is really, really interesting.
OK, well, we've got the Mirror now with the shocking revelation that some students have a sense of humour, Paul.
Unbelievable. Tory students filmed dancing to sick Nazi anthem at Posh Bash. So we're sneering at them already. And footage from a black tie event hosted by the Warwick University Conservative Association, top chaps, shows revellers dancing to Erica, a 1938 song beloved by white supremacists. Now, it was a prank.
Yeah.
And they're at pains to say, look, we had a playlist. It wasn't on our playlist. There was a rogue request. The DJ didn't understand what it was. It was a prank.
It sort of feels like another setup. So somebody snuck in and said to the DJ, "Oh, put this on," and then films them dancing.
I mean, the optics aren't great, aren't they? If for instance, it was the Labour equivalent or the Momentum equivalent, and they were dancing to some Russian Soviet song of their choice.
I believe they do. They do play the Soviet anthem at the Labour Party conference. That song.
No, I didn't go this year, but I can imagine. It's quite funny. The Tory Association is saying they'll exclude anyone who knowingly engaged with the song. What does that mean to engage with the
If you
song?
just heard a song and you're dancing, you're all right.
I love that they changed the chant to "Kill the Hughes." We've all wanted to do that with posh people, haven't we? Like that's what when I hear that, it's just all these posh Hughes running everything. I'm sick of them.
Yeah.
You know what's refreshing about this is it doesn't apply to Reform UK for once. But if it did, it'd be a much bigger story, wouldn't it? This will get forgotten. But if this was Reform, it'd be the end for Farage. Everyone would be saying.
Yeah. We've got The Guardian now reporting on how Britain's lack of babies could hammer the economy. I mean, I guess it might help if The Guardian didn't constantly print anti-family propaganda, Nick.
Yes, you're right. That is probably one factor. And they've gone with the baby bust, how Britain's failing birth rate is creating alarm in the economy. Of course, it's a massive, massive issue. They talk about the long-term decline in Europe, parts of Asia, South America, the US. Of course, this is a trend amongst economically developed countries. Israel is an outlier. Paul Morland has talked about this. He's the expert on this. He's talked about the trilemma we're facing, which he calls egotism, which he just means in this case not having children, being selfish, and he's not trying to be too pejorative, it's just convenient. Economic growth and ethnic continuity. And he says you can have two but not three. I've said this before, sorry if anyone has heard me say this, but Japan, for example, has gone for ethnic continuity and egotism, as he calls it, but they've lost the economic growth. We've got the economic growth, we lose sort of ethnic continuity. And so that's the argument. And it is a massive issue because it's behind all other issues, you could argue. Yeah. Immigration is almost the issue, but then what allows the politicians to say, oh, we need massive immigration? It's low birth rates.
Yeah, but then it feeds into it as well, because when people move to this country, the price of property goes up and the pressure on wages are pushed down. So then people are competing with everybody in the world for wages and competing with the richest people for property.
And then you get cost of living being the other big thing. When people are talking about the cost of living, what they really mean a lot of the time is, I can't afford a family. And that's what this article is very much about. It's like, how do you afford a family as a sort of ordinary person? And like you say, Leo, there's also things like the left, there's the climate change panic, and there's all these factors discouraging having children. And you could even argue, it gets a bit theoretical, you could even argue the liberal global managerial state, by its nature, replaces the bonds of family with the state. But that's getting a bit too big for the scope of this show. Yeah, and do you think technology could save the West? Because advances in AI and robots, we're being told that we'll be able to have robots doing a lot of the manual labour.
Oh, I thought we were going to have to make love to robots to increase the child.
Well, they are making. In fact, I think the sex robots, that field of ingenuity is way out ahead of all the other ones. Because if there's one thing that people like, it's putting their bits in things. Yeah,
stop looking directly at me, Leo. It's interesting because the approximate birth rate at the moment is 1.5. It's been slightly lower than that. It's been slightly higher than that. And the ideal birth rate is 2.1.
Yeah. And that's for a stable population.
For a stable population.
Some say 2.5, really, but go on.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's my point. We're almost one child out in terms of the average per couple. So we are lagging far behind. Now, do we have a cost of living crisis, or do we have an overpopulation crisis? A lot of people will lean on this being and forget that we do have a population issue in this country anyway. Yeah. And if you start looking, this might be the average, but if you look at the cultural groups that are having babies and not having babies, now.
It's not evenly spread across all demographics.
I wouldn't say it was. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I wasn't going to say it was one particular group.
Tiptoeing around this.
Yes, but what you end up with is a change in the demographic, a change in the culture, and it feels like it's on the way.
Yeah, and also I think there's already a change in our culture with a lot of unhappy people who, to be honest, having had kids myself, they'd be happy if they had kids. Yes. Having kids is great. If you read The Guardian, you'll hear that, oh, it's terrible. Oh, no, just have martinis with the girls. Oh, be single. Be a complete promiscuous, drug-using, degenerate. But if you have kids, it's the most soul-enriching, funnest, best thing in the world.
Yeah, no, you're living proof that having kids makes you happy, and I'm living proof that not having them makes you unhappy.
Yeah, exactly. We've got the Times now, and the British Museum plans to raise money by charging foreign tourists. It's a bit unfair considering it's their stuff to begin with, Paul.
Good point. The plan to shore up the British Museum, make overseas visitors pay 20 quid. So tourists should have to pay to visit the British Museum, according to the director, brought in to restore the institution's reputation after the theft scandal last year, which we covered quite a lot. So this is Sir Mark Jones, and he believes that institutions should refrain from charging British visitors and foreigners under 25. Now, and what do I feel about this? It feels like two things are being conflated here as well. You've got the British Museum issue. We had the scandal last year where there was a lot of theft going on.
Well, I think there's just stuff being stolen from the back rooms and being sold on eBay. I mean, why don't they just put a tax on the stuff that's being sold on eBay, Nick? And then they could cover it then.
I didn't think about that. It's a good idea, Leo. I recommend whatever you just said. But my thing is, museums are boring, right? I mean, who wants to go to them anyway?
They've got a nice atmosphere. I
find them boring, but foreigners should definitely pay, though. That's my view. So, that's my considered view on that.
You just saw an opportunity to be mean to foreigners. Anyway, just the final section to go with a dad who's been eating the same block of cheese for 10 years. It's not me. And we'll explain how people are avoiding getting caught by number plate cameras, which is very bad and you shouldn't do it. But we're going to tell you how to do it anyway. See you in a couple of minutes.
Britain's Newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
I've got a grade 3 astrocytoma brain tumour. Once I was diagnosed, I tried to do my claim with my insurance company and was rejected. They then also cancelled my life insurance and also cancelled my wife's policies as well.
And this is Zurich Insurance, John.
This is Zurich,
and their point was, because you'd had some dizzy spells, which you hadn't told them about, they say dizzy spells equates to brain tumour, which there's no evidence to support that.
I was with King's College Hospital. They ignored them. King's College Hospital were the experts.
So you were expecting £25,000?
Yeah, that was a critical illness claim.
Critical illness, because you've got a critical illness. Clearly, it couldn't be more critical, could it?
No.
Michelle, you've got a lovely poorly husband, and you're also worrying about paying the bills and what the future holds.
Yeah.
What impact is this having on you on a day-to-day basis?
I try not to think too much about the future because it does upset me. I'm kind of thinking, when John does go, I'm left with a mortgage to pay and 2 young children.
How old are your kids?
5 and 3.
Right.
Yeah. So it's incredibly tough.
And are you working?
I haven't worked since having the children.
Right.
And that's a decision we made when we had children.
In the grand scheme of things, this amount of money is a drop in the ocean for a company like Zurich.
Yeah, because I think they could make all this go away.
I've read some of the statement. Zurich statement. We're sorry to hear of the very difficult circumstances Mr. Renlin's family are experiencing. You're terminally ill, and they're calling that difficult circumstances.
The People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the final section of headliners. The Times now, and drivers are using tricks to avoid number plate recognition cameras. Paul, this is really bad. Please tell us how they do this so we can all make sure we don't do it by accident.
Let's make sure we definitely don't do this. Drivers fool enforcement cameras with £10 number plates bought online. So drivers are using doctored number plates brought online to trick cameras enforcing clean air and congestion zones, as well as tracking speeding motorists. So they use a tint, essentially.
Yeah.
A treatment that involves tints that can make it impossible for certain types of camera to read the number plate.
So that's another one of the techniques. So you can spray this tint on your number plate.
I've seen it.
It makes it sort of reflective or something. The cameras can't pick it up, even though to the naked eye it looks like just like a number plate. Yeah,
I mean, the contrarian in me absolutely loves this. There's certain cameras that I have no issue with them avoiding whatsoever. But you know, we're parents, Leo, and the idea of people speeding around schools and stuff does make me a little bit nervous. You know, speeding kills, and we don't want people to get away with murder.
Speeding's bad, but I once got charged 60 quid, a £60 fine for being like 3 minutes over in a supermarket car park, and I was serious.
Sickening.
Yeah,
and that's a lot to a Scottish person. I mean, this is... Look, people are trying to avoid ULEZ charges by buying plates for as little as £10 on Amazon, so don't do that. ULEZ is a great thing. It helps generate revenue for Sadiq Khan's overhaul for a more inclusive London.
Absolutely, which is a good thing. The Independent now with a controversy over Love Island, the TV show that's killed more healthy young people than Pfizer, Nick.
Wow. Love Island stars are being mocked over Botox and fillers. Women just can't win over beauty standards. I've always said that. And now The Independent is saying the same. And Botox is a funny one. There's basically they got a plastic surgeon. He was trying to guess their ages, and he was sort of way out. They were like 25, and he was guessing 38. Because weirdly, if you've seen a lot of these pictures, and it's been going around on Twitter quite a lot, women who are in their 20s get Botox and they look 40. But weirdly, women who are older, like 50, look 40. So it's like, it just seems to bring down the old women. So there seems to be a good age to get it, but an age to definitely not get it.
Yeah, everybody just looks the same. It's kind of scary.
If you want to look permanently 38, which for me would look fine, but if you're 20, if you're 21, I mean, I have never got it. The whole duck thing.
Yeah,
like a couple of inflatable boats on their face. What is going on?
It's not the weird thing. Is it's not for men, is it? It's either for their career, weirdly, or for other women, because men don't actually like this stuff, and they always go, "Why are you doing it?"
And it becomes almost like a fad, like you know, a social contagion. That because they're all getting it, they all get it. And it's something to do, and it's something to spend money on. And women love having something to do and something to spend money on.
Everyone has to get bigger and bigger lips.
Yeah. Literally inflationary. We've got The Sun now with the secret to sexual attraction. I suppose a good start is probably not having a rolled-up copy of The Sun under your arm, Nick.
Yes, that's true. It's from smell to sweat and blood, the secrets behind magnetic sexual attraction. So, blood type is a big thing. So apparently you should probably put your blood type on Tinder rather than your pronouns, or that you like the US office and don't like Jordan Peterson or whatever. It's so ridiculous. Anyway, put your blood type on that. The other thing is, if you sweat, it's how much you sweat when you first meet the person in the first couple of minutes. So for me, it's great if you sweat a lot on a first date. That's ideal, as long as they're also sweating.
But how's Prince Andrew going to generate sexual attraction?
I mean, I have got hydro Dewberry Whatsit, which means I oversweat, and you may even notice sometimes on it. I have never found that attractive in myself, and I've definitely never witnessed anyone else.
Probably because you've never found anyone else to sweat as much, but if they did, they would be your ideal match.
All I need to meet is someone as sweaty as me. I mean, they keep looking into this stuff.
Yeah.
Look, for me personally, if someone fancies me, I don't ask why. Let's not ruin the moment.
Yeah, you don't stop and be like, wait, before we kiss, what's your blood type? And you sweat a lot.
Yeah.
Weirdly, the other thing is if you both hate the same people. So it's pity me and Leo aren't gay because...
We've got the Mirror now with a story about some old cheese, Nick.
Oh, you want to do the cheese one, do you? OK. Yeah. So this is... I totally have this one. It's a man issued health warning after using same block of Parmesan cheese for 10 years. And weirdly, it wasn't Lewis Schaefer. It was some bloke. And, of course, it was a bloke trying to get value out of his cheese. You know what I mean? And anyway, he kept it for 10 years. Some say that's too long. Haters are saying that's a bit too long. Others are saying, well, you know, this cheese is kept for a year before it's even sold, and you know it's meant to be old. It's maybe just not meant to be that old.
Yeah, 10 years seems excessive for a lump of cheese. And also, how does he, if he's using it? I know it's Parmesan and you use it quite sparingly, but how has he managed to use it consistently for 10 years and it's still there?
It can't be, can it?
Very big.
The cheese
Did he buy an entire wheel?
Well, exactly. It must have been massive. The cheese world is full of contradictions, though, isn't it? We have said this, haven't we? I mean, it's supposed to be mature, but if it's got mould on it, don't eat it. I mean, it's gone off milk anyway. Just if it tastes yummy, stick it in.
If it tastes yummy, stick it in. That is not good advice. And finally, The Sun with a bank scandal. This time it's a sperm bank, Paul.
It is indeed an extraordinary story of the world's most dangerous sperm donor who fathered 1,000 kids across 20 countries. You may have seen this, actually. I don't know if you have, but there was a documentary, a Netflix documentary called The Man with 1,000 Kids. Jonathan Jacob Mia, I think is how you pronounce his surname. Sorry if it's not. I mean, I say sorry it's not because he's got lots of descendants out there who could tweet me. And obviously this is a huge problem. We've covered stories. We've covered this story before. We covered similar stories, and this is sort of a story piece about a lesbian couple, by the looks of it, who have got a child. I know that's going to come as a surprise to some of our viewers, but
what are you saying about our great viewers?
No, I've seen films where I reckon it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but the idea is that they suddenly realise that this father figure has fathered their daughter through the sperm donating.
Yeah, and the issue is that like if you've got all these offspring of this guy running around, they don't know. You know, if they have the same blood type and they sweat a lot, then they could meet and
exactly
then you have inbreeding.
Say, especially if you hate the same people as well. Don't go anywhere near them. You're probably brothers.
Well, the show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Monday's front pages. The Times leads with French right wing humiliates Macron. The Daily Mail has don't lock in Labour for a generation. The Telegraph has Le Pen, I have wiped out Macron. The Guardian leads with Labour can stem populist threat by improving lives, says Starmer. The Express has Kemi, my heart breaks when Tories turn to reform. And finally, the Daily Star has Yay Jude. And those were your front pages, and that's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests Paul Cox and Nick Dixon. Simon Evans will be here tomorrow at 11 p.m. with Steve N. Allen and Josh Howie. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, stay tuned for breakfast. Goodbye. Fun show.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening and welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Well, a changeable week ahead with some rain and showers, plenty of dry weather around too though. For today though, we've got a frontal system clearing its way southeastwards, allowing a ridge of high pressure to build, bringing a fairly settled evening. Notice the winds coming from a northwesterly direction though, meaning things are going to be feeling a little bit cooler. A change on the way into this evening though, as we see outbreaks of rain move their way into western and northwestern parts of the UK. But on the whole, overnight, plenty of dry weather around, a mix of cloud and clear spells. And under those clear spells, it will feel a little bit cooler, but most towns and cities remaining in the double digits. An unsettled picture as we head into Sunday, particularly across northern areas, as we'll continue to see those outbreaks of rain edge their way into eastern parts of Scotland. So fairly damp in the west, a few drier spells before that rain moves in the east. Quite a damp start too across Northern Ireland, northwestern parts of England, but once again in the far east, around Yorkshire for example, fairly dry with some bright sunshine to start. And similar across the south and southeast, a mix of cloud, but also some bright sunny spells to start the day on Monday. Generally though, it is going to be quite an unsettled picture. Outbreaks of rain spreading their way eastwards across the country, a little bit heavy at times across hills in Scotland. Generally though, later on across Wales and the south and southeast, a bit of cloud around, but some sunshine breaking through, particularly across southern parts of Wales and Devon and Cornwall. A bit cloudier in the southeast, but that's where we'll see the best of the temperatures, highs of around 21 Celsius. For Tuesday, another north-south split with some showers and some longer spells of rain feeding into the northwest and later on into northern parts of England and northern Wales. And across the south and southeast, that's where we'll have the driest of the weather again and the best of the temperatures. Turning windier from midweek, but plenty of dry weather around too. Bye for now.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's our summer treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest cash prize of the year so far. With an extra £30,000 in your bank account this year, you could take the ultimate financial holiday and send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could get you those nagging home improvements done, buy that brand new car, or just enable you to kick back and relax for the rest of the year. For a chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
On election night, we are throwing a party.
The GB News Election Night Watch Party will be live from Essex and you are all invited.
On air from 10 o'clock, we'll have familiar faces from across the channel, entertainment and lots more stuff as we keep our eye on all the results as they come flying in.
If you want to join our live Election Night Watch Party audience, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com/election party.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do. His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
Yeah, for dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Congratulations to the GB News winners at this year's TRIC Awards.
And the winner of Interview of the Year is... Alistair Stewart reveals his heartbreaking diagnosis to Camilla Tormany.
And the winner is GB News Breakfast. And the winner is Nigel Farage.
And thank you to you, our GB News viewers and listeners, for making us the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
A very good evening. You're with GB News. I'm Sam Francis. It is just after 7 o'clock. The top story from the newsroom tonight. Well, in a blow to Reform UK's campaign, a candidate has defected to the Conservatives, saying he's become increasingly disillusioned with the behaviour and the conduct of his party. Liam Booth Isherwood says he's suspending his campaign and will instead support Conservative Maggie Throup to stop Labour. The party's already withdrawn support for 3 candidates accused of making offensive comments, and one activist has been recorded making a racial slur about the Prime Minister. Well, at an event in Birmingham earlier, the party leader, Nigel Farage, claimed the campaigner was planted by Channel 4 News as part of a smear campaign, a claim, though, the broadcaster has denied.
This guy is a setup. He was acting from the minute he walked into that office. He came up with a stream of invective not seen since Alf Garnett was on the television in the early 1970s. And some of it was just, turning moths into Wetherspoons. It wasn't even serious. It was nonsense. So I really feel that Channel 4 or the production company need to be called before an inquiry. Let's find out the truth about what happened.
The Prime Minister insists an election victory for the Conservatives is still possible, despite polls predicting a heavy defeat. Rishi Sunak warned today that Labour's tax plans would, he said, bankrupt people in every generation, and also criticised Labour's plans to make private schools pay VAT, saying that taxing education is wrong. Labour, though, says its first steps, if it wins the election, would be restoring economic stability and cutting NHS waiting lists. The party continues to lead the Tories in the polls by around 20 points ahead of next week's election. And in France, there's been an unusually strong turnout in the first round of parliamentary elections there as the far right seeks a historic win. It's been calculated at just under 40%. That's the highest voter turnout in almost 40 years. President Macron called the snap vote after the far right did well in EU elections a few weeks ago. His supporters fear the move could backfire, though, and give the National Rally a chance to take power. If that happens, Macron would still remain as president until his term ends in 2027, but he could be forced into an awkward power-sharing arrangement with Eurosceptic Jordan Bardella, who's just 28, installed as Prime Minister. In the US, President Biden's approval rating remains unchanged following a widely criticised debate performance. A poll by Morning Consult found the president retains a 1-point advantage over Donald Trump. That's the same margin recorded the day after Trump was convicted of criminal charges. However, 60% of those surveyed said the president should be replaced before November's election, although no alternative candidates performed any better in the poll. Police in Tenerife have called off the search for missing teenager Jay Slater. The British tourist from Lancashire was last seen in a mountainous area of the island. According to reports, the search operation has now finished, though police say the case remains open. That comes just 2 days after a big push by search teams and expert volunteers to help find the 19-year-old on the island. Here, a woman has been charged with misconduct in public office after a video allegedly showed a prison officer having sex with an inmate. 30-year-old Linda de Souza Abreu of Fulham was arrested by the Metropolitan Police on the 28th of June. That's after a video filmed inside Wandsworth Jail was posted on social media. She's set to appear in custody at Uxbridge Magistrates Court on Monday. Well, Inside Out 2 has crossed a major box office milestone, taking more than $1 billion during its global release.